What happens when you take a beloved platforming mascot and the game genre that was established before games and mix them? Square and Nintendo asked this question back sometime in the early to mid 1990s, and the product was Super Mario RPG, one of the most beloved and influential RPGs of the decade. Now what happens when the mascot owner wants to make another, but the other company doesn't? Well, you do it again and slap a different label on it. Paper Mario on the Nintendo 64 released August 11th, 2000. And while it is definitely its own game, contrary to what I literally just said, it does indeed borrow a lot from Super Mario RPG. Primarily, Super Mario RPG was the first game to have a turn-based combat system, where the player had to time inputs to increase damage output and reduce damage input, commonly known as action commands. And while the game did pretty well, Paper Mario took it and expanded on it, the biggest change being the added variety in the required inputs compared to Super Mario RPG's singular button press. Now, Mario and crew would have different actions like mashing a button, reacting to sequential presses, flicking a stick, and more to increase their damage on enemies, as well as a few different inputs for reducing damage. And I think this is genius. One of the most common complaints I've seen with the turn-based RPG formula is that people find it boring because at its core, it is selecting words on a menu. But with these action commands, not only do players have to pay attention to the game while battling, but there is skill involved with dealing damage rather than just strategy. Speaking of strategy, however, the thing that makes Paper Mario stand out from Super Mario RPG and most other RPGs is the badge system. Badges are the only equipable items in the game, yet make a world of difference. When Mario levels up, he can select between HP, FP, flower points, basically magic or mana points, and BP, badge points. While what the other two do is obvious, badge points allow Mario to equip more badges. And at this point, you may be asking me, what are badges, Neon? What do they do? Can I eat them? Or maybe you already know, or something, it is a 21-year-old game after all. And the answer to that is, hold on, let me get to it. I'm getting there, and ew, what the f***? No. Badges have a ton of uses, and it's hard to explain them all in one quick sentence, so I'm going to categorize them. The first type of badge is a stat-altering badge, and these badges obviously boost stats. When you level up, I mentioned that you can increase HP or FP as an alternative to badges, but there are badges that do this too. HP Plus and FP Plus will give you one additional level of the specified stats at the cost of 3 badge points. 1 level of badge points earned upon leveling up. Fair trade, but I don't really see use for them aside from having a more easily adjustable stat spread. Then, there's also Power Plus and Defense Plus badges, which increase the almost otherwise static attack and defense stats. And these are super valuable because these numbers rarely change throughout the course of the game. Considering at the end of the game, common enemies only deal about 6 damage, Defense Plus is particularly useful, as it reduces pretty much all damage you take by 1. Attacks that utilize the mashing action command don't get affected by this. With this badge equipped, you pretty much can't take damage from the weakest enemies, and will take significantly less from others. Attack Plus does the same thing, but to your attack. This makes it so battles with enemies who lack any defense, jumps are particularly powerful, and in battles against defended enemies, hammers are good. Other badges in this category include the Damage Dodge Plus badge and Charge badges, with Damage Dodge increasing how much damage is reduced when successfully blocking, again, for most enemies, and Charge badges allowing Mario to charge up extra strength to use up at a later time. There are also give and take types of badges in this category. P down, D up makes Mario deal less damage and receive less, with P up, D down doing the opposite. And on the extreme is all or nothing, which makes Mario deal extra damage when he successfully hits action commands and deal none when he misses them. The second type of badge is the new action badge, and these do pretty much what you'd expect. They give Mario a new type of action. Some give Mario ways to deal more damage, like Mega Jump, and others give you ways to debuff enemies, like Shrink Stomp, and others allow Mario to reach different amounts and locations of enemies, like Quake Hammer, Spike Shield, and Hammer Throw. This part of the game is where the real strategy comes in, as different setups allow for Mario to deal more damage in different ways. With the right setup, Mario could wipe a whole group of enemies with multi-bounce, or deal dozens of points of damage to beefier foes with power bounce, or reach enemies who would otherwise be unable to answer. Knowing the enemies becomes the single most important part of battle due to this badge type, and significantly helps shift the game from the standard RPG strategy of survive and deal damage to kill them before they hit you, which is super refreshing for the genre. The third type of badge is the restorative type of badge, and these badges do just what you expect. They help Mario restore his limited stats, like HP, FP, and star power, which I'll get into later. Happy Heart occasionally gives Mario 1 health back, and Happy Flower does the same, where multiple gives the effect more often. Then there's Deep Focus and Group Focus, which allows Mario to recover more star power from using the focus command, and giving partners the ability to focus. And both of these are great when you're in a cinch, but these days you have to expect that, because you can't change out badges mid-battle. Fourth is a less common type of badge, but still important, the Emergency type. These badges often aid Mario when he is in danger, less than 5 health, or peril, 1 health, and are a Last Stand type of badge, like the badge Last Stand. Last Stand reduces Mario's damage input when he's in danger, and there's other effects from other badges that help when in danger that can reduce the chance of getting hit, or increase attack power, and most of, if not all, these badges have stronger variants for when Mario is in peril. Often, the most skilled players will use these badges and purposefully put themselves in these states, either for the challenge or for speedrunning purposes, as the power increased badges can help Mario make quick work of even the most powerful foes. Now, there are still more badges in this game, but as there are a total of 69 unique badges in the game, nice! Fitting them all into designated categories would be tiresome. The aforementioned cover most badges, but there are still some remaining. There are badges called Attack FX badges that will change the sound effects for Mario's actions. These cost no BP to equip and are purely cosmetic. Then there's informational badges like Peekaboo and I Spy, the former showing enemy HP if not already titled, and the latter helping Mario find hidden areas where star pieces, a form of currency in the game, can be found. Then there's some badges that help Mario find more stuff, like Flower Finder and Money Money. There's Speedy Spin, which helps Mario move quickly, and Slow Go, which helps Mario sneak around. The other last notable ones that don't really fit any category include Runaway Pay, which lets Mario run from battle and keep any earned star points, the game's experience system, Quick Change, which lets Mario change partners without losing a turn, and Refund, which refunds Mario coins for using items in battle. What's awesome about badges, and what makes them the star of the first 2 games of the series, is that with how diverse they are, Mario has an infinite number of strategies he can take hold of to align with enemy formations and player ability with action commands. Battle remains always fresh and exciting through this 10 to 30 hour game because of it. Another important aspect of RPGs is how the main character gets stronger. And while from what I have said so far, Mario can upgrade HP, FP, and BP, I haven't mentioned the way he increases other stats like attack and partner abilities. And the way the game does this I think is genius, because it limits the player from being overleveled. Mario has to find new boots and hammers across his adventure to increase his attack power, but there is only 2 additional levels of power from base, and they automatically equip, making it different from the standard equipable item. As for partners, there are these special blocks with a blue sphere of power hidden inside, scattered throughout the game, and when Mario finds one, he can level up a partner, giving them 1 more attack power and 1 more move to use in battle. Now let's talk about partners. Each and every one of them is pretty unique, and the game does a good job at giving all of them, except Lackluster, what the f*** happened there, a good use in battle, and all of them, yes, even Lackluster, unique personalities and stories. The first partner you meet on your adventure is Goombario, a joyful Goomba who is basically the Dipper Pines of Goomba Village, the place Mario falls and lands upon getting his butt kicked by Bowser. To a newcomer, he seems to be one of the weaker characters in the game, but in my recent playthrough I actually found him one of the strongest. His starting 2 abilities are Head Bonk and Tattle. Head Bonk is just jump but for a Goomba, nothing special. But Tattle gives the player the download on enemies and makes their health bars appear for the rest of the game. He also gives useful hints about these enemies to help Mario take them down, except for Kent C. Koopa, who is weak to sleep effects, but the average player would never know that! When he first levels up, he gets the Charge ability, which is quite weak on its own. Dealing 2 extra damage per turn when he finally attacks is weaker than just attacking every turn, unless the enemy has more than 2 defense points. But it's when he unlocks his 4th ability, Multi-Bonk, that makes him shine. Remember earlier when I showed Mario dealing crazy damage to a boss because of Super Jump Charge and Power Bounce? Charge and Multi-Bonk is just that, but slightly weaker or slower. With this setup, he is entirely capable of dishing out massive amounts of damage, and can come in clutch when Mario is just trying to tank hits. However, Goombario is near useless when it comes to taking out multiple enemies or spiked enemies, and struggles against armored foes. Off the battlefield, he can tattle and tell Mario what to do, or tell Mario about someone he's standing next to. Next is Cooper, an adventurous Koopa who wants to set out to explore with famous explorer Colorado, who you meet when investigating Koopa Village to find, coincidentally enough, Cooper. He's had his shell robbed by the Fuzzies causing trouble, and upon Mario returning it to him, joins Mario in his quest. His first ability is Shell Toss, a simple shell attack where he slides towards an enemy and bonks them. His second ability at first level, Power Shell, is the same thing, but it hits all grounded enemies. His first level up, he receives Dizzy Shell, which is the same thing, but makes enemies dizzy and unable to attack sometimes. Lastly, he receives Fire Shell, which is also the same thing, but may burn enemies instead of causing them to be dizzy, though in my experiences this rarely happens. Overall, Kooper is quite linear in design, but it's great against groups of grounded enemies. Outside of the fight, Kooper can hit stuff from far away that Mario can't due to either a gap or a low hole in the wall. Next is Bombette, a rebellious worker bomb. Found locked up in Koopa Bros' fortress, Bombette joins Mario out of spite towards the Koopa Bros and Bowser. Like Kooper, she is pretty linear in design. Her first attack is Body Slam, where she runs up to an enemy and body slams them for some damage. She also has Bomb at this stage, which is a powerful explosion she lets loose. This is especially good against armored foes, and in the early game can be the player's only way of hurting some enemies, like Bill Blasters and Clefts. Then she earns Power Bomb, which is an explosion that hits all grounded enemies. Pretty simple. Lastly, she gets Mega Bomb, which just hits all enemies. Outside of battles, Bombette can blow up stuff and act as a delayed switch activator. Scouring the dry plateaus of Mount Rugged, Mario runs into Parakarry, who is a quaint, scatterbrained male Koopa searching for lost letters. Upon finding and returning them to him, he joins Mario to find letters along the journey and return them to their rightful owners, which I imagine most players don't really do. Parakarry is a unique partner because he can hit enemies anywhere early on and will prove essential for dealing with Buzzy Beetles, Swoopers, and other ceiling-inclined enemies. His first move is Skydive, which is a swift kick in the face of a selected enemy and can hit anyone anywhere as long as it doesn't hurt to kick, like spiky and fiery enemies. Also at first level, he has Shell Shock, the powerful aerial version of Kooper's Shell Toss that is the best early game method of dealing with flying foes with defense. Upon leveling up, he gets Airlift, in which he escorts an enemy from battle. And I find this ability quite useless, as you don't actually get the star points from the enemy, and it sometimes fails. Lastly is Air Raid, which is a move that deals piercing damage to all enemies as he flies around the battle scene. Outside of battle, Parakarry can carry Mario across gaps too big to jump over. As Mario finds news of Tubba Blubba keeping hold of the Star Spirit Scholar, he is invited to a mansion of booze regarding information about the Star Spirit. It turns out Lady Bo, an affluent and devious mistress ghost, found him after he escaped Tubba Blubba and captured him as ransom for Mario to defeat the ghost gobbling fiend. Upon defeating him, Bo decides to remain with Mario for the rest of his adventure. Bo is an interesting character because she deals the most damage from a normal attack for most of the game, but is ineffective against armored foes. Her first attack, Smack, deals damage to the enemies in ones up to 4, 5, and 6 times depending on her level. Then she has an ability called Out of Sight, where Mario can hide like a boo for a turn to avoid damage. This is particularly good for enemies who have charge attacks. When she levels up, she gets Spook, which is basically a luck-based airlift that affects all enemies, which also does not provide star points. Lastly, she gets Fan Smack, which is a stronger version of Smack, the highest damaging single move for a partner in the game. Based on her abilities, Bo is the type to help Mario avoid a fight. Outside of a battle, Bo can help Mario in the shadows as long as he remains still. This pretty much is only used in Gusty Gulch and one spot in Bowser's Castle. In Mario's adventure into Shy Guy's Toy Box, he comes across a weird ghost who likes the dark, carrying a dimly lit lantern. Upon defeating the ghost, Mario rescues a little spark named Watt, who seems to be very young and a very pure individual. Watt is great in that her attacks ignore an enemy's defense, so while they deal a bit less damage than other characters' attacks, they handle armored foes better. Electro Dash is Watt's first move, which has Watt go up to an enemy and spark them. Her second move is Power Shock, which paralyzes enemies. When she levels up for the first time, she receives Turbo Charge, which allows her to increase Mario's attack power by 1 for a couple of turns. Lastly, she receives the move Mega Shock, which paralyzes all enemies to varying success. I personally never use Power or Mega Shock because they have a chance of not working, and it generally isn't the best idea even when it would work in my opinion. Out of fights, Watt can light up dark areas and illuminate hidden blocks for Mario to find, which is pretty helpful for all the stuff Mario will miss otherwise. When Mario rides a whale over to Lava Lava Island, he stumbles upon a Yoshi village. However, when he returns from the volcano trying to figure out a way over to the other side of a lava stream, he's met with chaos as the baby Yoshis of the village ran away. Upon searching for them, he teams up with their nanny Sushi, a soft-hearted yet responsible Chief Chief. Kind of an ironic name, right? In terms of attacks, Sushi has pretty much nothing new to bring to the table, yet her kit is still useful. Her first attack is Belly Flop, which is pretty much an aerial version of Mario's hammer. She also starts with a squirt ability, unfortunate naming I know, which allows her to spit a blast of water at an enemy with solid damage output, especially against fiery enemies. Then she learns Water Block, which gives Mario a slight boost to defense for a couple of turns. Lastly, she has Tidal Wave, a move with, in my opinion, a difficult action command that hits all enemies with water and if done well, can cause massive damage. Sushi is perfect for when the player is facing fire enemies, or if Mario just needs a slight edge on defense. When not in combat, Sushi ferries Mario across water and can dive down to retrieve stuff from the bottoms of water sources. Lastly, Mario encounters Michael, Spike, Lackluster, whatever you want to call him, in Flower Fields, who is serving Huff and Puff. He takes on a hipster rebel front, but seems to be quite soft-hearted and silly around his girlfriend Lackalulu. After a somewhat easy battle, his girlfriend comes in to convince Mario to forgive him, and upon speaking with Mario, is encouraged to join his cause. Lackluster, in my opinion, is the worst partner in the game for battles because of his moves. First, he has Spiny Flip, which is the standard Black 2 move of throwing a Spiny at the enemy. This doesn't have any upsides over most character moves, aside from it acting as a hammer throw kind of move, which only works particularly well against Junior Troopa's flying phase, compared to other characters. Then, he has Spiny Surge, which is a move where he throws Spinies at all enemies. This is the weakest all-target move in the game, dealing only up to 4 damage at top level. Then he earns the ability Cloud9, which gives Mario a chance to not be hit. This move is okay, but the nature of it only occasionally working discourages me from using it, as I don't like depending on luck to succeed. Lastly, he has the move Hurricane, which is just a copy of Bow's move Spook. Again, not great, as the player gets no experience from it. In my playthrough of the game, I found myself constantly using every character for their abilities in battle except Lackluster. Outside of battle, Lackluster is alright though, as he can safely take Mario across dangerous terrain like spiky thorns and lava. Partners in Paper Mario are part of what make the game so good, as finding out how to optimize their uses in battle and cleverly start fights, as well as using their abilities in the overworld to solve puzzles, adds to every part of the game, and their charming quirks and personalities make the game's moment-to-moment story shine. Speaking of story, Paper Mario is in a weird spot. The general plot is Bowser kidnaps Peach, but then also, he steals a Star Rock from the Star Spirits, who he locks up to grant wishes. But under that grand umbrella of the plot is the moment-to-moment scenarios Mario has to deal with to save the Star Spirits. At the beginning of the game, Mario is invited to a party at Peach's castle for whatever reason, and upon meeting Peach there, Bowser lifts his castle, which is under Peach's, into the sky. Mario and Bowser then battle, and Bowser reveals his Star Rod, which he uses to make himself invincible. He then chucks Mario out the window and he tumbles to the ground, landing in a grotto near Goomba Village, where he receives a message from the Star Spirits to meet them at Shooting Star Summit. From there, Mario has to deal with Bowser's minions, the bully of Goomba Village, Junior Troopa, and rescue the Star Spirits. The Star Spirits provide Mario these special attacks throughout the game that use star power to use. There's stuff that can heal Mario, give status effects to enemies, attack enemies. There's a good variety of them. Along his adventure, he deals with finding ancient ruins, Toad Town being raided, a Star Spirit being held ransom, escaping an erupting volcano, a magical flower field, and raiding Bowser's castle, and a few more different unique scenarios. Along the way, he meets many interesting characters, from the Worker Toad, who goes through an arc discovering the difficulty of bringing up a household, to delivering mail among many customers. What really ties everything together, though, is the contiguous world, where everything ties itself together, creating a good sense of immersion in the environments. Going from a grassy area to a haunted forest or starry summits flows really well, and everything ties together well to make it feel like a real living, breathing world. Alongside the main story, there's plenty else to do in-game. You can raise small pigs at a little Oinks farm, collect all the badges, star pieces, and cooking recipes, deliver mail, compete in quiz shows, and solve other quests and mysteries presented throughout the game. For any and every player, there is stuff to do and collect. So after all that, what would I rate this game? Overall, I think it has stellar gameplay, a wonderful story, fantastic world, great music, nice visuals for the time, and lots of charm. I would rate this game a 9 out of 10, just because it's got so much going right for it, with only a few small quirks here and there. Anyways, thanks for tuning in to my Paper Mario retrospective. I hope you guys have a great day. Make sure to like and sub, and ring the bell for more content from me. I'll see you next time.